Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Last night, our government concluded the fall sitting of 2025. It was a busy and productive 7 weeks that saw the passage of 14 government bills, along with 2 motions, and I'll take a moment to highlight some of that today. Let me begin my remarks by saying we're proud of the work that we have done this sitting. The bills passed and the way that we have defended Albertans, protected children, and worked to improve healthcare and education in the province of Alberta. Each bill passed was designed in the interest of Albertans and making life better for people who call this province home. I'll spend a few minutes talking about some of the legislation that we passed. First, Bill 1, the International Agreements Act, which ensures international agreements and treaties signed by the federal government that touch on provincial jurisdiction are only binding in Alberta if implemented under provincial law. The fact is, Canada's Constitution divides authority between the provincial and federal governments, and yet it is not uncommon for the federal government to step out of their lane on issues that should lie primarily with the province. Healthcare, education, management of natural resources, municipal affairs, they're all constitutionally recognized as provincial jurisdiction. It has always been and will continue to be the mandate of our government to stand up for Albertans and ensure the federal government is not overstepping into matters of our jurisdiction. Bill 4, the Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act, is delivering on the creation of the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. Now, I represent rural communities, and what I can say is we don't care what officer shows up when we call 911, but we expect an officer to show up when we call 911. Frontline officers deserve every bit of respect and honor. But the management has left too many communities, particularly in rural Alberta, without consistent, reliable policing. Then Bill 9, Protecting Alberta's Children Statutes Amendment Act, which invokes the notwithstanding clause to uphold the legislation our government brought forward to protect minors from making adult, life-altering decisions as children. It also strengthens the role as parents as primary caregivers and ensures fairness and safety in amateur competitive sports. I stood in the House, as many of my colleagues did, and unapologetically defended Alberta's children this week. I will say this again here, as I said it in the chamber, that the NDP is on the wrong side of history. They have failed women, they have failed Alberta's children, and they chose not to stand up and support this bill. Bill 11, the Health Statutes Amendment Act, modernizes the healthcare system, improves access to essential health services for all Albertans, all while strengthening accountability and protecting public health care. The passage of this bill includes bringing a proven dual practice model that gives physicians flexibility to work in both public hospitals and private clinics, increasing the number of surgeries and reducing wait times for Albertans. This proven model is widely used in top-performing health systems around the world, including Denmark, the United Kingdom, and France, as well as in Quebec and New Brunswick, demonstrating it can work while protecting public health care. Bill 13, the Regulated Professions Neutrality Act, which protects regulated professionals' right to freedom of speech and expression. Regulatory bodies were not established to police its members' thought or political belief. There have been too many instances of professionals facing undue discipline for matters outside the regulatory body's realm of responsibility. Every Albertan and every Canadian has a right to express their beliefs on policy and should be able to do so without fear of retribution from their professional governing body. Our government brought forward a Sovereignty Within United Canada Act motion to protect legal firearm owners from the federal government's gun confiscation scheme. This is a $750 million debacle that targets Canadian citizens who have legally obtained and follow requirements to owning, transporting, and using firearms. It's our government's view that this is a complete waste of money and would be much better used for targeting actual criminals in Canada, not law-abiding constituents like mine. And I would add that just the other day, the Premier of the Yukon said that he also will not be participating in the federal program, for the federal gun buyback program. The provinces are not happy, and the federal government needs to take notice. Finally, the Legislative Assembly unanimously passed a motion to endorse the Memorandum of Understanding signed by Alberta in agreement with Ottawa to unleash our energy sector. In doing so, we are removing the oil and gas production cap, removing net zero power regulations, building a 1 million barrel per day pipeline to Asian markets, 400,000 barrel per day TMX expansion, and opening deepwater port access for oil tankers. The fact is, Alberta remains the best place to live, to work, and raise a family. Our economic growth is leading Canada, adding more than half the jobs created in the entire nation for the second time in the past 3 months. We lead weekly earnings among our provinces and are investing in the services and policies that strengthen our economy. So as the sitting comes to a close, I will say that I am proud of the work our government has done to bring back investment and reignite Alberta's position as the best place to do business. Our entire team of ministers, MLAs, and our Premier fight every single day for Alberta, and I look forward to that momentum continuing on. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Perfect. We'll start here with questions in the room. We'll start here at the front and move around to the back. Go ahead. We'll start with your name and outlet, and then I'll do one question, one follow-up to start.
Sure. Connor Hogg, CTV News. I'm wondering, is it your opinion that bills regarding federal overreach, provincial assertion, and freedom of speech are what general Albertans are most concerned about? Specifically, what about the negative response to the resolution of the teacher strike?
Well, I'll work backwards with your question. First off, kids were out of school for 3 weeks, and by the time they went back, it was 3.5 weeks. Everyone in Alberta has rights, but kids also have a right to education. And keeping them out of class any longer would cause irreparable harm and long-term damage to their learning. So we as a province felt it was important to step in. And so I think the parents were happy that we were able to get kids back in the classroom learning where they should be. With regards to the interests of things like freedom of speech and our Sovereignty Act motion on gun rights, yes, I hear it all the time. People are tired of feeling as though they can't express themselves freely. They feel like the federal government is stepping into jurisdiction that goes well beyond what they need to. I think the federal government should be focusing on attracting and creating a regulatory environment in this country that attracts investment, that focuses on jobs and creating a strong economy. Alberta has had to step up and will always step up to be a leader in the trade market, in manufacturing attraction, investment attraction, because we are a global player as a subnational jurisdiction. The federal government has not done enough in the past, and I'm grateful to see the MOU and the Premier work with Prime Minister Carney to have a change of course on that, and I expect big things going forward.
You have a follow-up, Connor?
The MOU is obviously a very big. It's a very big deal. I'm curious why you didn't mention it more during the speech.
During my opening remarks?
Yeah.
Well, I know the question's coming. Look, this is the Alberta-Ottawa energy deal of the decade. The Premier has been working on this since she became the Premier. She has been a staunch defender of Alberta's energy sector, and I can tell you that in my opening remarks referring to legislation, but not everything that we do as a government is done through legislation. We also go and we make deals with other jurisdictions, with the federal government, to ensure that Canada can succeed. Like, a strong Canada needs a strong Alberta, and our Premier is leading the way by signing this MOU with the Prime Minister, and I'm very excited about what this means, because it's not just about oil and gas pipeline. We're talking about removing many of the 9 bad laws that were in place for a decade under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which I think is a lost decade for this country. And even you look at Alberta, between 2015 and 2019, you call it the triple black swan event, where you had Naheed Nenshi in the mayor's seat in Calgary, Rachel Notley as the Premier of Alberta, and Justin Trudeau as the Prime Minister of Canada. Those are dark times for our country and for our province and for the city of Calgary. But I can tell you right now that the numbers show we are leading the country in job growth, we are leading in investment, and we are the lowest tax jurisdiction. It's why people are coming here by the droves, and it's a great place to be.
Okay, we'll move to the next question here in the front row. Name, outlet.
Morgan Black with Global Edmonton. So also very busy outside of the legislature during this session too. There were labor disputes, separatism pushes, recall petitions. A lot of that tied to what was happening inside the legislature. So what do you think, all of that, to summarize, how does that reflect how the public feels about your government's work this session?
Well, I'm going to start with the recall petitions. I think a lot of people are conflating a recall petition with the recall election. let's be real. This is a coordinated effort by a handful of union cronies who want to try to destabilize our government. That was never the intent of the recall legislation. And the point was to make sure MLAs are held accountable for things like egregious actions that they take as an elected official, to remove someone if it's been something that is really just beyond the pale. This is not used to remove someone over matters of dispute or disagreement on policy. And so I expect all those recall petitions to fail. I expect us to not be distracted by the recall petitions, but to continue to focusing on the things that matter most, which is job creation, investment, reducing internal trade barriers, and supporting our Premier in executing the MOU which he signed with the Prime Minister not that long ago. So I am not being distracted by issues that are happening outside the legislature when it comes to recall petitions. That's all it is. What I'm focused on is what I'm hearing at the doors when I knock doors, when I get emails from my constituents, when I meet with my cabinet colleagues, talk with the Premier. These are the bread and butter issues, the kitchen table issues people talk about, healthcare wait times, the cost of living, all things that we're addressing, making sure kids are in school with education, getting the education, world-class education that they deserve, and they're getting right here in Alberta with our world-class teachers.
And then what's on the docket for 2026?
Oh, you can't ask me to let the cat out of the bag that early. But, you know, we'll have a schedule tabled January 15th. I apologize, brain lapse there. But once that's scheduled, then we'll have a budget coming out end of February. And when we have this press conference in the kind of in February, we can chat more about that agenda. But at the moment, high level, you can expect more of the same. You know, dealing with the issues that people are emailing us about, that you're hearing about, and keeping life affordable, keeping Albertans working, attracting investment. And I think we've been doing a great job with that with the leadership of the Premier.
Okay, we'll move to Jack here.
Yeah, Jack Crow with the Canadian
Hey,
Press.
Jack.
There was a kind of a theme about some of the bills that, you know, they ended lawsuits or they prevented future lawsuits, future challenges. There's been some criticism that, you know, like the government is kind of just like pushing the courts aside, and then the Premier, of course, and the government has said, you know, parliamentary supremacy, you guys can change the law when you want if you feel like it. My question, though, is do you think that the courts still act as a kind of a check and balance when a government takes, I'll say takes advantage, but it's not really what I mean, but like takes advantage of the parliamentary supremacy there to shut out the courts, so to speak? Like, do you think that courts still can play a role in a check and balance when the government moves bills like this that kind of prevents lawsuits left, right, and center?
So I think you've oversimplified what the Premier said about the role of the courts. We are ultimately responsible to the people. We have elections every 4 years on matters that you're referring to, which I suspect have to do with Bill 9, which is the Protecting Alberta's Children's Statutes Amendment Act. This is a bill that we passed over a year ago. As the Minister of Tourism and Sport, I was part of that, and I was proud. I was very proud to stand up and protect women and girls in sport. But we have seen that there is a challenge on this and other pieces of that other bills, and so we're taking measures to ensure that parents remain the primary caregivers of their children, that they have rights to know what's going on with their kids in the classroom, that we are protecting children from making life-altering, irreversible changes to their reproductive system, helping them maintain adult decisions for when they become adults, and protecting women and girls from playing sports against biological males. And it's really discouraging to hear the NDP go off and the leader of the opposition, Naheed Nenshi, go off about this bill and call it something other than what it is, which is protecting children. Naheed Nenshi stood in this building just a couple floors up when talking to the press gallery when asked about the enforcement of the Fairness and Safety in Sport Act and how would it be enforced. And his response was simply, and I quote, "So basically the minister wants to wander around every school, see who's playing, I suppose, wander into locker rooms and check out people's genitals because that's what this is leading to do." Went on further to say, maybe the minister wants to go into locker rooms and check people below the belt. That is a disgusting remark. And again, a horrific interpretation of what we are trying to do, an oversimplification of the importance of this bill and protecting women and girls playing sports. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I do not have any concerns about Bill 9 and making sure that the legislature and the elected officials here who were duly elected by the people are the ones who have to answer for this, not the courts.
And I take your point, but I'm also like kind of thinking about the I think it's Bill 12 with the AIMCO lawsuit, and we can think about Bill 14 and the court review of the separation question. So it wasn't just about Bill 9. But I guess my question kind of still stands, like on a broad philosophical level.
I'm
like,
failing to understand what your question is, Jack. That's the issue. So,
Okay.
and I'm not trying to be disrespectful
No,
or argue with you.
neither am
I'm just not quite sure what your question is.
Yeah, I'm just, bear with me, I'm sorry. I just like, on a philosophical level, the courts exist as a check and balance to government power. Do you still kind of believe in that moving forward? Like, I guess I'm wondering if you can just like commit to the government still respecting that as an institution that can provide a check and balance going forward.
Well, I don't think there's anything philosophical about it at all. It's real. There is a check and balance. But when it comes to matters like I just mentioned, in Bill 9 dealt with that, we do have the notwithstanding clause for a reason, and it is constitutional. The NDP has said it's not constitutional. There are lawyers on the other side who are elected who should know better.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question here with Catherine.
Yes. So I think you said you're proud of the work you do at least 4 times, but by my rough back of the napkin math, I think there were only, other than the ministers who moved their bills, there was 12 MLAs who actually ended up speaking to 8 out of your 14 bills. Part of that was probably due to the time allocation, but I mean, you mentioned the quality of debate was not great, and that's why you had to bring in time allocation. But if you are proud, why did you not take the time? Why did you not have members speaking and explaining why they support the legislation that they voted for?
I don't have the numbers that you have, and I'm in no position to say that you're wrong on those numbers. But it is pretty common as the government to go into the legislature and with the NDP as the opposition, make their points known, and the government responds. Ministers were there during committee of the whole on a number of occasions. Even I stood up during debate to answer questions during interventions. So I think our government has participated quite a bit. We use time allocation on 4 pieces of legislation because, again, there comes a point where you reach the magnitude of the potential of the quality of your debate. And one great example, but there's lots of them, is when Marlon Schmidt stood up in the chamber and stood silent for 5 minutes. Completely silent. And that is his right to do that as an elected official, to take up the time. He has that time. That's his privilege. But if that's the way that we're going to approach this job, to get the points across that we feel are important for us, both as government and opposition, I would argue that we're not doing that. In addition, we had scheduled session to end before December. We extended. We are now 2 weeks in. And as of yesterday, we were 2 weeks in beyond the scheduled end date. I think there's been ample time, including night sittings for that last 4 weeks and sitting until 1:30 and 2 o'clock respectively Monday and Tuesday. So I have no problem standing up here and saying ample time was given to members opposite to the NDP to debate this legislation. Our members had lots of opportunities to get up and defend our legislation. I'm proud of what we've done with the International Agreements Act, making sure that we're not letting the federal government intervene on provincial jurisdiction, effectively gambling with Alberta's money. We're going to make sure we're standing up for children, as I mentioned, and get kids back to school. So 14 bills, we could go through them again if you like, but I know that we spent countless hours. We spent 9 hours on Bill 6, Education, Prioritizing Literacy and Numeracy Amendment Act. We spent 7 hours on Bill 9, Protecting Alberta's Children's Rights Amendment Act. We spent another 5 hours, 5 hours and change, actually rather 6 hours on the Water Amendment Act. So like the list goes on. A lot of time was spent in legislation. So the NDP feel they didn't get their chance. That's unfortunate, but maybe they could raise the level of their debate as well.
Okay, we'll do a
I think
follow-up.
it's beyond the just the NDP. There's, the chief electoral officer said, hey, I wasn't actually notified about this. Here's my last minute, and it doesn't actually even touch on all the things I wanted to say. The courts weighed in saying this is wrong, what you're doing. But I guess I have more of a question because I don't want to pretend to read your mind. There's a lot of what is referred to as omnibus legislation. So Bill 4, the deputy premier did agree to split up that one for block voting, but like 10, 11, 12, 14, there's all these pieces of legislation that are not necessarily related to. Like Bill 12 is a perfect example. I'm only just now getting to write about the Securities Act changes, but there's the AIM code, there's ADAP and AISH. So I'm wondering, why does your government like to smush all of these unrelated bills together as opposed to a separate bill for each act that's being amended?
Well, I would say it's not uncommon to have omnibus legislation. Bill 10, for example, the Red Tape Reduction Statute Amendment Act, is by design an omnibus piece of legislation. It has been since we started and created the Ministry of Red Tape Reduction in 2019. If you were not to put things together into bills, we would have something probably, I'd have to go back and do the numbers, but you're looking at probably 30 bills in a session. It gives us the opportunity to, I believe, efficiently deal with the legislation with things that are topically adjacent. But when it comes to this legislation and the issues that it addresses, this is all things that we interact with the private sector and with the public sector, that we deal with issues as they come up. Governments are by design reactive. We do get proactive in some instances, but what I can say is that we hear from stakeholders things that are reducing productivity in the province. And for us to remain the beacon of economic opportunity in Canada and even in the world, we have to make changes to regulation so that signals to the investment community, hey, you should come here and put your money in Alberta. I've traveled around the world, both as a tourism minister and now as a jobs, economy, trade, immigration minister. People love Alberta, and they want to make sure, and they have given us feedback as to how we can maintain our position as a great place to do business. So omnibus legislation is important to make sure that we're efficiently getting through legislation in the Assembly.
Is it efficient if you have to come back an amendment? I think there's 3 different government amendments on Tuesday.
There are government amendments. This is not without precedence. It's not uncommon to have government amendments. It's part of us listening and getting feedback from stakeholders through the legislative process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. That concludes today's press conference. That's all the time we have.
All right.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a happy holiday, happy Hanukkah. Thank you. Take care. It's going to be a time.